Profanity Nation.
Yeah, it's the new era of man for some old school fans with a new school brand. We got money on the mic with the plan in hand. And Stat Pat to his left, they go hand in hand. And to the right, we got Simpster, he putting it down. It's the Profanity Nation, we running the town, yeah.
It's the Profanity Nation.
Profanity Nation.
Welcome to the Profanity Nation podcast, where we are the voice of the professional fan. We have an outstanding guest here today, but before I introduce him, let's introduce my co-host always, Money Mike. What's going on, my man?
Man, I'm good. I beat Marco in fantasy football.
You took on Marco Nunez, of course, from the waiver wire. So
he was 3-0. We're going to talk about the injuries later on today.
He's no longer 3-0.
Yeah, he's no longer 3-0, man. I took him out today.
Gotcha. Stat Pat, I think you're still 3-0.
Well, no, I lost last week.
You did? Okay.
Yeah,
so I don't think anyone's undefeated
I don't know
anymore.
what I did this week.
Right. You still not checking in?
I still can't get in, dude. They still told me to schedule the draft. I'm the commissioner. They told me to schedule the draft. I'm like, wait a minute, I already scheduled the draft. We had the draft.
Oh, this is funny. Okay, of course.
So I'm still stuck.
Update, of course, Stat Pat is the commissioner of our Infinity League, and since day one, he hasn't been able to get in, but he's still been beating everyone except for last
Lamar
week.
Jackson, and he's scored like 40 points every time. So.
All right. Without further ado, let's introduce our guest. This is awesome. We've been waiting for this for a while. We have NBA analyst Eric Pincus here with us. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on the show. Eric, of course, Eric, you're kind of quoted. If people look you up online, you're kind of, you specialize more in the business side, kind of the salary cap side and the numbers and so forth. Let's get right into that. How did you kind of find that as your niche?
That's a good question. I started doing this not dissimilar to you gentlemen here, where I was just a fan of the game. Like I growing up in LA, went to Lakers and Clippers games.
Sure.
Sports Arena, the Forum, got like the end of that. And at some point I realized like there's actually a job where they pay you money to go to games, and I'm paying money to go to games. So I should
switch that up.
You know what I mean? And that's like the heart of how I got started. And so that's like, I guess that's the idea, the spark. But from that, like, how do you realistically do that? And so over time, I managed to hook up with the right people, found that people liked what I do as a writer, and they, I was able to communicate in a way that people could understand maybe complex topics. I could break it down, and eventually made my way into the building, got to know some great people, got to know Kobe pretty well.
Yep.
Was there really around 2002, 2003 is around when I started. And, what the fans of a team want, what they want to know is, how is my team gonna get better?
Exactly.
Even if you just, like, you're the Warriors, you're a Warriors fan. How can your team get better? We just want it all. How do we win it again? Right.
Yep.
Or if you're at the bottom, right, like the Rockets and the teams that were, the Pistons, all these teams that were at the bottom last year, Magic, et cetera, Thunder, they want to know how they get better. Right. And so I realized that just like there's rules of the game, traveling, you can't just run with the ball, right? 3 points behind this line, 1 point, you shoot a free throw, complicated rules like block charge. There's all kinds of nuances that go beyond that 48-minute game that goes on year round. That is how teams play against each other constantly to try to get better. And that's how I'm like, oh, there's a whole another side to this game.
There's a whole chess game going on behind the scenes.
And I was able to learn the CBA, got to meet great people, got to know Larry Kuhnwell, who's sort of the godfather of teaching the salary cap. Go to cbafaq.com if you want to get started with that sort of thing. Larry breaks it down. And that's really how I got started. Found that I had a way of understanding that extra game, and through the years have managed to find out things about contracts and strategy that I think, I do well, but it's a matter of opinion.
Yeah, no, obviously it resonates because people are following, people are reading, people are watching what you do. So obviously you take what a lot of people just don't understand, and it seems a little bit complicated, and it actually is complicated. And you break it down into terms that, like you said, the fans that just want to know how their team can get better, you explain it in a manner that they can actually grasp that. So that's definitely, I would imagine, key to your success, and we all appreciate it. That's for sure. I'm really curious in that aspect. From year to year, how much does that change? How much is there learning or adapting, or is it plug and play each year?
I mean, there are certainly aspects that are plug and play, but I'm constantly learning and trying to, I mean, there are areas that come up that are like, I know the rule, but like, this is the first time I've seen this rule applied. So what exactly is the rule? And like, we had something where the Thunder got a disabled player exception. They picked up Mo Harkless in trade, turned him around almost immediately in a deal with the Rockets. And there were some questions about aggregation where some other media folk had suggested one thing and that didn't mesh with what I understood. So I'm reading, I'm copying sections of the CBA, sending it to people. This is my interpretation because there are the rules. And just because they're written one way doesn't mean that that's how the league interprets those.
I would say interpretation is everything.
Like the whole reason we have like a legal system in our country is because the written word is not clear. Like it's, what does the mean? That's been a debate in politics, right? Like, so yeah, like there's like where a comma could be, or, and it's like, if you know legal documents, like they have terms. So then like this refers to a term definition up here. So you kind of have to like copy and paste and put it all together. And I come up with what I think it is. And then I send it to somebody who might have the ability to give me like an authoritative answer. And then they may not even know either. And so then it becomes like a thing. So there's like the plug and play of like, I know contracts and they roll over and figuring out like cap room and all the nuances. But then we're going to have a new CBA next year, most likely.
Yep.
And so now the rules will change. And what will that mean? And how will the teams find those loopholes? And, it's a copycat league. Like, the 3-point shot became a thing, right? Like if you go back far enough, it was like it was like a novelty, like whatever.
Yep.
Now it's like the heart of the game, right?
Yeah.
So teams copy each other. It started maybe with like the Suns of the Steve Nash Suns, but you can go back further and like Donnie Nelson was doing stuff like, so like, or even like, there's a lot of growth and it's just like there's a game in the court. There's a game that's played year round where teams are copying each other and saying, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to use that. And then, you just adapt.
All right. So let me, first of all, you could not answer any question, but
Mike's always the troublemaker.
Just want to warn you. When I see stuff like that and to the regular fan, people who don't know the intricacies of everything, and we say, all right, NBA salary cap for every team was 140 million, right? And all right, cool. We got that. We got 3 players that got 120. Okay, we have a 12-player roster. How are we gonna get $20 million? The other 20 million divided by, and I know that they're like veteran exceptions and leave mid-levels and all that stuff. But how do you really fill out that team? And I know if you go over a salary cap a certain amount, then there's tax and all that stuff. But for me, dude, we just literally gave this dude LeBron like $97 million for the next 2 years. He literally has a third of their salary cap. How do we fill the rest of the roster? Okay. When those things happen, I'm sorry.
All good. Doesn't apologize. So you're basically saying like, where do the Lakers go from here?
Right. We literally we have Russ with 44, and I'm maybe off a little. Right. They all say 40 on there, so it may be 41 or 45 or 47, but they're 40. So that's $120 million. And salary cap is what, 160?
It's much lower than that, but it's still a lot. It's not quite that high, but regardless, whatever the number is.
So how do we get the other 9 players on the team? I'm sorry.
It's all good. So like the Lakers have money coming off if Russ is gone.
Yeah.
Right. And you have guys like Walker, Nunn, guys who are making more than the minimum who are expiring. And so in theory, all the Lakers have is LeBron and AD next year and Max Christie, and they probably have the rights to Reeves they can keep, which won't be expensive.
Yep.
So you start adding that stuff up. And if you've looked around the internet, you've seen like reports that the Lakers are hesitant to make moves that take on salary because they want cap room next summer.
Right.
So when you just have LeBron and AD, and let's just, we're not going to use real numbers, but let's say it's 90 million, right? And let's say the cap is 130.
Right.
Okay. I'm just making stuff up.
Sure.
It sounds like you have 90, 130, you have 40 million.
Right.
But for each slot that you have open up to 12, that takes up, we'll just call it 2 million. I'm no one write these numbers down, right? So you can't just fill it all up. But they might have like in the neighborhood of $30 million to spend if they hold it tight. Now, the max is going to be, most players is between 40 to 45 million. They might be able to get to a max of a guy like Tyler, like Hero, right?
Yep,
But Hero just took an
signed.
extension.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you go, well, like who else might not sign an extension? Cam Johnson, is he worth that kind of money? In my opinion, no, but I like Cam. It might be that worth it somewhere else. But if you're the Lakers, I don't think Cam Johnson's the where you
Right.
put that money. You don't hold your line right now to go after Cam Johnson. Do you hope that Kyrie Irving can't get more elsewhere? Maybe that's probably what they're thinking. But then if he does get more elsewhere and you can't pay him what he wants, then what were you waiting for? Right. So one way is to hold it tight, right? The other way is to say, screw all that. We don't care about all that cap room. What we're going to do is we're going to make trades so you can pad trades. So if you trade Russ, let's say Russ is making, we'll round it up to 50, right? You might be able to take back 25% of that, right? So you can take back a more money than you send out. Or if you trade, in the case they traded Taylor Horton Tucker and they got back Beverly. So there are ways to add salary through trade. And then there are exceptions. You mentioned the mid-level. Lakers project to be a tax team if they were to keep it together, but they're a tax team right now, but if they might not be under the tax next year because players are expiring.
And the
so,
large expiring
so they might
contract of
have
Russ.
closer to, it'll be 11-ish to
So-
spend. So there's money, and you could always sign someone for the minimum. So once you get past that worry about, well, what do you do for the rest of the roster? You do what they've been doing the last few years. You go after guys like, Thomas Bryant, Damian Jones, Troy Brown Jr., all the guys that they got for a minimum, or last year, Melo, Bazemore, all the veterans that they got, DeAndre. You always have the minimum, unless you have a hard cap. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
So okay, so I guess
Answer it at all.
Yeah, I mean it kind of does. So now my perspective has changed because we're not really concerned about this year. We're really concerned about.
Well, it depends. Are you concerned about this year or next year? They're two different questions, right?
Well, because
all
but
the teams are different.
But they're related to each other because what you do this year is going to impact next year.
Right.
So if you take on like a Buddy Hield, right? Who's a guy who was linked to the Lakers before. He makes 20 something next year, right? Let's call it 20 even. Doesn't matter the exact number. If you had 30 maybe next year and you take on 20, 10 million is nothing. At that point, your exception's 11, so you don't have any cap room, right? So if you have 11 to spend, and you're not going to give that up to spend 10, right?
Yeah.
So if the priority was like right now, win right now, which it should be based on having LeBron, right?
And his age.
Right? It's time to win in theory.
I mean,
then
we gave him all this money, so he should win.
Well, I mean, right, but also there are 5 to 8 to 10 massive impact players in the entire league. Right? Like how many are there? There's Giannis, there's Steph, but Steph, when he didn't have his guys, did Steph suck it up? Do we say, Steph, you're not?
He
good?
was balling, but he didn't have his guys.
Okay,
but
you're not saying the same thing about LeBron.
That's what I'm saying. To your point, he was balling, and he was a play-in team.
Why wasn't Steph? Why didn't the Warriors win the last couple of years?
Well,
because they weren't any good.
Well, yeah, because
they
people were hurt, right?
Right. Well, AD was hurt.
Well, actually,
but listen, let's.
LeBron was hurt as well. Right?
Well, but
Steph was hurt too.
What frustrated me about the blow up of the team and us getting in Russ is at the beginning of the season we were a championship contending team, and the only reason
before Russ or after
before
Russ?
Russ,
okay,
before Russ, and the only reason why we didn't win was because of injuries.
I think there's an argument.
So my whole thing is, well, if that's the only reason why we were this bad was because of injuries, why did we blow up the team to what we had last year if that was the only reason?
Well, I mean, number one, and I'm not disagreeing with you. You're making a real point there. That's not what the front office wanted to do. They didn't believe that was the right thing to do. That's not what LeBron wanted. He wanted Russ. And so they made the choice together. LeBron. Now I'm with you. Like realistically thinking, these are human beings. They're not robots, right? And the Miami Heat go to the finals. They were not the same team the next year.
No,
because this was the fastest turnaround in professional sports history after the bubble championship, right? Almost all the teams that were in the Final Four, I think the Nuggets were the only team that like survived.
Yep.
But they were like, they didn't have Jamal got hurt.
Murray,
I mean, everybody got hurt. So a realistic point of view would be to simply say what you're saying. Like, you were a championship contender. The reason why you lost is because like it's too much on the bodies. It's kind of like when the Lakers go to 3 championships in a row, right? They lose the first one, win the next 2. They didn't have the legs after that. Go back to the Shaq Kobe era.
Yep.
They go 3 times. That 4th year,
Playing
you got
that
beat by
deep.
it's a tax. That bubble championship and quick turnaround was kind of like that on steroids, right? So it wasn't a 3-year thing, but that was too much. So I'm close to agreement where like if you kept everybody who Caruso, KCP, Kuzma, and added a Melo at that point,
Right,
and add like Monk,
Just a couple key
right?
pieces.
Melo and Monk at the minimums,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe they go whatever. Maybe Nunn, who we got hurt.
Right.
And
They
Nunn
make
was
it to the
another guy who
playoffs,
was
at least.
missed the whole year. So there's an argument to be made that you took a championship team. My point of view is like, you already have LeBron and you already have AD, right? So you need to put athletes around them.
Right.
You need to put youth around them, energy, guys who can give them rest. So now you could say, well, LeBron needs help. He needs another star so that like he doesn't have to do it all. But LeBron's still going to do it all. Like, it don't matter who's playing.
And that kind of was our argument. Like, when we got Russ, we knew, you know what I mean, Profane Nation knew that it wasn't going to work, because we know 2 things.
The eye test.
That Westbrook is a ball dominant basketball player. LeBron is a ball dominant basketball player, and they cannot coexist. Also, with Westbrook, he is a player that he's an energy guy, right? So he's a player that has to actually get into the rhythm of the game in order to be effective throughout the game. Where LeBron could come off the bench. That's why Melo was great coming off the bench, because he's just a scorer. So, hey, Melo, go give me 15 points. He come in, start jacking up shots, and it's a perfect combination, because he doesn't, he could come in at any time and be effective. But we know the type of player Westbrook is. He's not effective unless he's really actually engaged in the game. I mean, perfect example is the Shaq and Kobe days when Phil Jackson told Kobe, hey, you can't score 40 points a game anymore. We got to feed the ball to Shaq to get him to be involved so that way he can be effective in the game. And I don't understand why, if we could recognize that as, just fans of the game, and they say we want Westbrook to come over here, what did they think, was going to happen other than what happened?
One thing about that, though, is like, when you have all this talent together, to me, it falls somewhere on the coach. Like, how do you blend this talent together? And what is your plan for Westbrook? Like, we don't know to this day what Vogel had. We know they had a falling out. We know that. We know that happened.
And no rotation.
And why are you not staggering minutes? Like, I'm just looking at the things. Like, I'm from the 300 section. I don't know much about basketball. I know enough, but you're the expert. You're the coach. I'm just seeing things just from the eyeball test. When I'm like, you could tell ball dominant person. You're in the starting lineup. Who's going to be the point guard? Who's going to be the shooting guard? It's not making sense to me. But I didn't understand what Vogel's plan was for Westbrook, and that's where I think everything got messed up. And if he would have put him in things that make him more successful on the court, I think it would have been. I think it could work. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's going to work now. I think when they're saying the Lakers are being a playing team, even with health now, all of a sudden with health, which is funny. And I'm just saying this right now. I'm going to put on record. Keep the same energy. If you're going to say AD is a top 20, is only number 20 player in the league, when he starts balling, don't all of a sudden elevate him with number 5 and say, well, LeBron got this kind of help. He got AD. He's a top 5 player in the league. No, he's not. He's not. 20. He's number 20. That's who he is. So don't try to elevate him now because of health, because you knew health was always the deciding factor when it comes to AD. Don't try to diminish him now because he can't stay healthy, and then all of a sudden he becomes healthy. Then you want to elevate him to like top 5, top 3. I heard top 3 after the bubble championship. He's top 3. You start hearing all these inflated numbers. Right. So it's like, okay, so now what is it going to be this year? Because I don't think that we're a playing team. People say we are. I don't think we are. I think we can be if we have a system that works, and if they buy in on the defensive end, like they did in 2019, 2020, I think that's a recipe for success for this team. But then we need to have the stars buy in to that defensive philosophy.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
where I think we're at.
Well, there was a philosophy in 1920, right? That they won with, right? Did the coach just forget how to coach? You know what I'm saying? So to simply say it was Vogel, that's not enough. I'll give an example. Like years ago, my folks bought me like a jigsaw puzzle, right? And one of the things you're taught is like build the frame, the outside.
sure.
There were 5 corner pieces in the box. Like it was obviously defective. Like you can't put that puzzle together. There's no,
Right.
you know what I'm
Just doesn't
saying?
work.
That puzzle. So there's a point where with Vogel, he was given a roster that A, couldn't shoot, and B, couldn't defend. And any of his lineups that could defend couldn't score. And any of his lineups that could score couldn't defend. And he spent the whole season with a ton of injuries, lost none for the whole year. LeBron about half. AD played what he usually plays, which is like, whatever. Like, if he gets to 60, it's like,
Yeah, right.
That's what we want.
The 62
60,
games.
65.
Man.
So
The last 65.
but I'll say this, like, you're not, you may be absolutely right. And if you're right, then a new coach with a new philosophy, Darvin Ham should be able to get what wasn't there. It's a better roster on paper. You could argue right now the Lakers are underrated at this point because of how bad it was last year. I've talked to different executives around the league, and like one was like, yeah, they're a playoff team, and one was like, yeah, they're not even making the play-in. So we had 2 polls, but most were like in the either the top of the play-in or the bottom of the play-in. That's either 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. That's where most have, right? So I don't know where they're going to end up. Darvin's saying all the right things. He's embraced Russ, brought in Beverly. Beverly's embraced like all of the chemistry. If it exists, if there's chemistry to build, they're going to build it. But it also still might be a 5 corner piece,
Team.
jigsaw puzzle that don't work. So we don't know. And teams are negotiating with the Lakers if they're going to make a trade, assuming it's not going to work. And so the Lakers, they should wait and see. It's going to get, if it doesn't go well, it's going to be ugly, and they're going to pay hand over fist to get relief and trade. But
They're already being fleeced anyways with the trade offers.
Well, they're
that
trying to be
offers right
fleeced
now
right now.
are bad.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So
The Laker tax.
I feel
Always.
the Darvin Ham interview was
Press
what
conference.
he would do with Russell, and that's how he got the job, right?
So-
I mean,
Right,
or
finish up.
I mean,
Finish up.
based on what we saw in the media, right?
he's deserved a job for like Budenholzer coached in Atlanta with a bunch of great assistants, and all those assistants got jobs despite having fewer years in the business than Darvin Ham. Now we could debate what that is, but we probably have a sense of the NBA is trying to improve and has improved and is a leader in a lot of ways.
They've been the best at it,
but that's great. It's not great. Like the history needs to improve.
Mhm.
Darvin should have got his shot 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I'm happy for him. I've known him since he was an assistant with the Lakers, and he's just somebody who's like, he's a formidable person. Like he's passionate, he's kind, but he's also like got heft behind him. Like you're not going to mess with Darvin.
Right.
Like he's got authority.
Right.
You're not going to like, if he's angry or serious,
You're not going to
You're
perk
going to
him.
know.
yeah, I'm going to do what he tell me to do. You know what I mean? So I want him to have success. I root for people. I'm generally an optimist. I wake up in the morning, I want things to work out, right? So I'm rooting for, and it's not like a Laker thing or anything. Like I'm rooting for all the people I know. That's, if you do this long enough, you get to know people, and then you start to root for friends to succeed, or people that to succeed. So I'd love to see him have that kind of success. And maybe the Lakers are going to be great this year. We just have to wait and see. But yeah, like I don't know, like you said, the eye test, and it's like if AD is a non-shooter from the outside, which he's been for the last 2 seasons, right? And really has never been a 3-point shooter really consistently. And then Russ is a non-shooter, right? And you're going to start maybe with Damian Jones, who, he shot a 3 in a scrimmage the other day. He's not a shooter. Yeah, like if he comes out and shoots 40% from 3, hey, God bless, right? But he's a non-shooter. So if you got 3 guys, if that's who they're starting, now they're putting none potentially in the starting lineup because he can shoot, and he historically can shoot. So yeah, if he's a 38 to 40, right, and you have LeBron who can shoot, but now you got 3 other guys, you don't have to guard them. So you know, like what system is there Like
It-
I've coached at
I'm-
the youth
but see-
level. Like it doesn't matter what level. If you don't have to guard 3 players,
Yeah, exactly.
it don't matter.
and-
like
and
what
for
set
whatever
you
reason-
run. You, like they
and
can
for
run
whatever-
around all they want. You just ignore them and
Yeah.
just clog the paint.
Go ahead.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
for whatever reason, the Lakers have gone against the formula of success for LeBron, which is surround him by shooters. And they've continued to do that, and they continue to do that. What the rationale behind that is, we don't really understand. That's the question, wondering what's going on. Like they're trying to prove they can do it without wrapping him around, with
Right.
shooters.
And they got it. Well, it's hard to find. Like they got Monk and they got Melo last year, who were
Mhm.
shooters, right?
Yep.
But neither of them are defenders. Now Monk, I thought, gave as much effort as he could.
Yeah.
I thought he applied himself defensively. They had successful lineups with him on the floor. With Reeves, it may have been more of
Reeves,
just like Reeves made up for, but at least Monk wasn't a full negative, right?
Yeah.
But they haven't done what, like, yeah, they've gotten some shooters, but they've been either too old or guys who don't defend. But it's hard. Like, there's not a lot of guys in the league who are like legit 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", good defenders, big, can shoot 38 to 40% from 3. There's not a lot of guys like
For
that.
the minimum.
For the minimum.
For the minimum.
Right?
So,
You're
but-
paying
but-
Well,
everything-
that's the thing for the minimum.
Yeah, that's what it is for the
you put all-
minimum.
But they had Kuzma, and Kuzma was not a great 3-point shooter, but he
But he
did
was great
space
defense.
but he spaced the floor. When
Yeah.
Kuz came in, he was terrible on defense, and he became a good defender.
He came
Right?
better, yeah.
Like KCP was a good shooter, not a great shooter, a streaky shooter.
Yeah.
But he busts his ass. I don't know.
Yeah, you
busts
go.
his
Yeah,
ass,
go ahead.
Yeah.
busts his ass playing defense. You know,
Yeah.
like I think they underrated what they had and what those role players were because they weren't out there. Like when you play with a LeBron and an AD, you're not going to shine all the time on offense because like that's not your role. And I think they kind of lost sight of that. The people above, making the decisions. I think you need role players, and if you're looking for stars all the time, that star is going to have to be a role player with
So-
LeBron James.
So I get that. So let's go back and asking, why did LeBron want Westbrook? I mean, because he knew Westbrook is the style of player that he was or is. He's not a player that would help his game. I mean, because he handpicked, Kevin Love and Bosh and he handpicked people that complimented him.
How many stars end up being excellent general managers?
None.
Jerry West.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true.
Larry Bird did some of that for
Yeah.
a while, I think.
Can't
right?
call Dumars a star, but
Like,
he
Well, I mean, Dumars was an all-star.
was an all-star. So I would say Dumars would
he
probably
was
be.
but he was, he
But
was,
they are the exception.
yeah, like Mitch Kupchak
Mhm.
was a role player
Yeah.
who spent most of his career hurt, or at least
Mhm.
certainly his Laker career hurt.
Danny Ainge.
Right. Danny Ainge was a hugely valuable part of what the Celtics were in that era.
Yep.
But he wasn't their top 3
No.
guys.
No.
Right.
He never had that heat on him.
Right. Like
He had Bird to take the heat, of course.
So understanding how to build a team is a complex thing. And LeBron, right or wrong, in this case, feels like he would, it feels like he understood he made a mistake here. I can't speak for LeBron, but I think,
Mhm.
his actions and his relationship, his icy relationship we saw in some of
Yep.
Mhm.
him
Yeah.
at one side of the gym. I was there and I'm like, I was with my students. I teach a class in Vegas and we're sitting there with our students and like, I can't pretend like I'm not seeing this and try to
Right.
explain it. Like these guys are not saying hi to each
Not
other.
ag-
They're
not ag-
icing each
yeah,
other right
yeah,
now.
Not acknowledging it all.
Right. So, I mean, I agree with you. When it happened, I was like, I talked to people, they're like, I don't get it. I looked at it. I'm like, I thought like with health, just pure talent alone, they should be able to get to at least
See,
like
my-
a top 4 seed.
my
Top four.
my
But they
feeling,
weren't
six.
healthy enough.
Give him a-
Right.
my feeling always was like, look, they're both making $40 million a year, so they both got to start, right? And then, but I said after 5 minutes of starting, sit Westbrook down, let LeBron play the whole first quarter, let LeBron start getting this rest, let Westbrook run the second unit. And that way Westbrook had the opportunity to be ball dominant without LeBron being out there
Right.
as
Then
much. And then
if
that
LeBron's playing 36, then you're going to play Russ for 12.
no. I mean, but the second
those are-
quarter
those are
would be
real
Russ's.
numbers.
Yeah.
Where Russ would kind of get everybody else involved, and then he would come in on the kind of on the
Still
back
only,
end.
yeah. I mean,
It's
it's still only
still-
12 minutes for Russ, and
Yeah.
fine, he plays with LeBron. If Russ plays 24 minutes, right, then it's 12 minutes with LeBron, but he's going to play close to 30.
Yeah.
So to me, the whole debate of whether Russ should start or it's immaterial. Like, you invested in the guy, you got to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
It was a decision that I didn't agree with at the time, and it's a decision that doesn't look good right now.
Right.
But, you know,
Hasn't played.
But
out well.
I would say
they're
this
0-0 right
because
now.
because
they've
of the,
lost 0 games.
Right.
Right.
It's a
So,
fresh.
you know,
well, listen, I will tell you this, because of Darvin Ham, I'm really am interested to see what he's come up with, simply because I know that he got the job based on what he said, what he would do with Russell. His press conference about what he's feeling about Russell, he sold me. I figured we'll give him this 1 year to see what he could do with him, because I'm interested.
The Lakers have tried to trade Russ since they had that interview with,
I know.
you know, Darvin. That was the reason why they hired Darvin. That's Darvin said, I have a, you know, what's your plan for, because they're like, we may, in so many words, that we may not be able to trade Russ. So what are you going to do?
Mhm.
That's not the reason why you hired the guy. You hired the guy because he's so formidable. He's a,
Yeah,
he's a
they have
person.
him for post Westbrook
Like,
period.
he was
that's
the
for
best
sure.
candidate. Like, they looked at Terry Stotts, who I think is really qualified coach, but he's kind of the inverse of Vogel, like offensive instead of defensive minded.
Yep.
But someone who's been there, done that. Like, this was a time to go with somebody new and give someone a crack. And I was really happy they gave Darvin a crack. It wasn't because of what he would do with Russ. However, that contributed to, you know, the hire.
Everybody, don't go anywhere. This is great. We're having a great conversation with the wonderful Eric Pincus. You're watching the Profanity Nation podcast on Infinity Studios. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. United One Protection Services. With over 30 years of experience, United One Protection Services has more expertise and knowledge than the other security companies combined. Residential, commercial, municipal, or institutional, United One Protection Services does more than just security. We protect your livelihood. United One Protection Services.
Hi, I'm Renee Starms of the Starms Agency. Do you know why 97% of startups fail? It's because they don't have the proper exposure. So for the first time ever, Infinity Studios and the Starms Agency have come together to provide you with the Little Guys Big Marketing Package. Now, this is for local Los Angeles businesses who are ready to launch, relaunch, or simply expose their business to grow. With this package, you're going to receive 6 months of online and offline marketing tactics in a customized plan for your business. You're also going to get a professional TV quality commercial filmed in an 1,800 square foot studio with multiple screening options. So if you're ready to grow, go ahead and click that link. We also have financing available. I'm looking forward to chat with you. Click the link and let's go.
Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Profanity Nation podcast here on the Infinity Studios streaming channel. Again, our guest is Eric Pincus. Thank you very much for joining us. Stat Pat, you had a question.
Yeah, man. Let's get to it. So why did they get rid of Caruso, man? Like, cause that's my guy, and I thought that he did so much for the team. He was one of those work, you know, like those. He was able to just, like, we call him lunch pail guys. Like, what you really, like, just brought his lunch and he went to work and he did the dirty work that none of these stars wanted to do. I mean, I think sometimes when he was go ahead and do something in the court, they would get energized, especially like when he dunks on people. Like, they didn't know he could dunk on people. When he started dunking on people, like, oh, what do we have here?
Yeah.
And they would get energized based upon his play.
And it's contagious.
And it's contagious. So why didn't the Laker organization, I think it was when I'm talking about organization, mainly the front office, value that? I mean, even though it was going to cost them a little bit extra money to pay him, why then they
Was it cost prohibitive?
Aren't they paying Patrick Beverly more than what Caruso got?
Thank you. So that's what they do. They learn the hard way. They learn the hard way.
reactionary?
You know, that brings my question up here. Seeing how that you dive deeper into the numbers, the caps, and all of these situations, you're looking more at the chess game being played behind the scenes, as well as the game on the court. But you're looking behind the scenes. Are there teams out there that just stand above the others from your point of view in the way that they process deals, the players that they sign, the salaries and such? Is that evident and very clear to you, or are all the teams relatively equal there?
That's a complex question because there are some teams, I'm trying to word it properly, who are cute, you know, like they do all kinds of like little extras, you know.
Can I
They
say the
win.
Clippers?
They win. What's that now?
I'll say the Clippers.
No, I mean like anything Daryl Morey trade,
Okay. Yeah.
like even Presti.
I was like
you know,
Presti.
Presti, like I much respect. You know, I know both of them and they've done great things. What Presti has done is broken down a team and gotten a lot of assets for it. Cool. That's what the Jazz just did, right?
Yeah.
Like much respect.
Fire sale.
Breaking a team down is a lot easier than building one up. Like when the Lakers, people celebrate, oh, the Lakers traded Nance and Clarkson and got a first out of it, you know, to the Cavs. Oh, celebrate. I'm like, you just sent away two good players. Now maybe that works out for you. You know, they got LeBron, eventually AD in a championship. So whatever got them, they're fine. But like in the case of Caruso, like I don't want to short shrift that answer as well. Like, you know, Chicago looked at him and like, you know, you could be cute, right? Forget all this cute stuff. Like Chicago, they're just like bread and butter. Like they just do the new GM. He's making deals. Gave up some firsts to get Vucevic. Gave up some firsts to get DeMar. Like he's making moves, right? He could have gone one way. Could have gone another way. I don't know if there's anything that stands out that's like, oh, you know, special cap gymnastics. Like he's just doing his thing. But like he looked at Caruso and saw value and paid him a nice contract that wasn't outrageous and got a hell of a nice player. And the Lakers easily could have matched that money and they just didn't value him, right? So to me, there's like, you could be great, like what we talked about, people who are doing all these moves, but if your player value isn't there, like I mean, Presti drafted like KD and Russ and Ibaka and
What a great team.
and Harden. Like I mean, he's done some incredible things, and then he's got Giddey's real nice, and you start going, you know, I'm not mad. Like his player eval, clearly they've got some, but I you know, who knows how that story is going to end. On the Lakers side of the coin, like they've drafted well the last, you know, 8 years, however long. Like you go through their picks when they draft, which is you know,
they draft quite well,
they
especially late in
pretty
the
much dump all their picks,
Yeah.
and anybody they draft, they eventually trade. But like they do draft
They're
well
good, yeah.
when it happens.
And their farm scene,
Their
farm,
G-
you know, the
South
G
Bay,
was great,
like,
yeah.
like I mean, we had GP over there. We obviously had Caruso.
Yeah.
Mac McClung is
Thomas
about,
Bryant.
about to kill it.
They've done a great job.
You know,
But
this year.
at the front office level of Lakers, the player eval seems lacking the last couple of years.
Mhm.
And you know, I've written on the last 5 years that the kind of moves they've made, they've been bleeding picks left and right. In every deal they've made, they've sort of been on the losing end of every deal. And like the deal they got for AD, you know, you got a championship out of it. At the time, they changed the market. Like the market wasn't the market for what they gave for AD was not the market. Now it's the market.
Yeah.
Because they set the market. And now, you know, Paul George going to the Clippers reaffirmed that. And now like, you know, the Rudy Gobert thing and all this and Mitchell, now the it keeps, you know, inflation, it's escalating, you know? So like before that, it was, you looked at the history and it was like DeMarcus Cousins and guys like that. They were barely getting any firsts. It was like nothing. Teams were holding on to first. Like it was like, you know, you couldn't get
like that was
first,
gold.
right? But the league changes and grows. In the case of Caruso, it was just like they didn't value what he did flat out because they had the money to pay him. You could say, oh, the Lakers they can't afford the tax because this is all that the Buss family does, and they don't have the pockets of a Ballmer. And yeah, of course they don't have the pockets of a Steve Ballmer or Mark Cuban. But like, how many championships Mark Cuban got? He's got one. Good for him. You know, it's awesome. It's not all about just your bankroll. And the Lakers are paying more now.
They keep paying more on the back end to make up for their mistakes.
Right.
Paying the tax isn't the issue. Last year, it was just that they just didn't value Caruso enough to pay the tax for him as a player. And just to wrap it up, you just need a star, but you need a star on defense more than you do when you have LeBron. You got your stars.
Yeah.
on offense. LeBron and AD. Go get stars on defense. How many better players in the league are there on defense than Caruso at the guard position? There's not
Mhm.
many. I mean, there's some, but there's not many.
No.
Well, let me ask you about that, because I mean, obviously there are billionaire owners, all around the league, and some that are not billionaire owners. But from a revenue perspective, and like I said, I'm just looking at it from a regular person. I'm saying how much is going out, how much is coming in. We know that jersey sales and all this stuff that LeBron, we were at the highest, even at the fact that we didn't even make the playoffs. The revenue that was generated by the Lakers, was what was all still at the top. So with that, I in my mind, I'm thinking, are we able to pay the luxury tax and still make a profit as an organization? Not
And
necessarily,
they are paying
not necessarily because Steve Ballmer is worth more than Jeannie Buss. You know what I mean?
The Warriors right now are paying like an unprecedented amount of money. If you just take them out of the mix, then the Lakers are one of the highest spending teams in the league. The Clippers are spending a lot of money. They're happy to pay tax, but where you're seeing the difference is that, like, the Lakers have a small front office still. They do. They don't have a very large one. The Clippers have one of the biggest in the league, but then so do like the Thunder have a pretty decent size amount. They have a decent staff. You start going through, and there are teams that don't have the kind of, like the Spurs have a very big staff. That's their thing, right? Like they have an army of people to do the evaluation to build that team. Lakers don't invest that way. Like compared to the Suns, the Lakers have more, right? The Lakers are bigger than the Suns front office. Like, Suns front office is, I think, one of the smallest because they don't believe in
They don't value that in the same way.
right. So, like if
And for the record, front office staff does not count in salary cap.
no, it doesn't. Absolutely.
So-
But there is a budget, and so I
sure.
get it. And like the Lakers make more money than most teams in the league,
Right.
based on their TV deal, but also we live in LA.
It's more
And so
expensive.
it's more expensive. They have the building that they invested in, which is a beautiful building, the Health South.
UCLA Health.
Right. It's beautiful. So,
So that revenue coming in is it like apples and oranges and
I
that?
mean,
Like,
they can afford Alex Caruso. Like
Yeah,
they're paying
right.
now
More.
that money
right.
to Patrick Beverly.
Plus
So it's
So it's never a matter about
it-
that.
I mean, and people say to me, oh, like they want to go. People are asking me this, was like, do they want to go into the cap next season to get out of the repeater tax and things like no, they're not running from money. They're just not. Like, that's just not what the Lakers are doing. They're making decisions that you may not like, but they're made for basketball reasons. If you don't like their basketball reasoning, you don't like the basketball reasoning. The decisions aren't made by the wallet. Now, of course, you're not going to, I mean, it comes into play. Like, they could have kept Caruso. They didn't think he was worth that kind of money.
Yet
Or
they
the tax
traded
that went
for
with it.
Russ. Again,
And
one
they
of the
thought Russ
highest
was worth
players,
it. Right.
one of the highest
Like,
paid
you
players.
don't, like, if you're trying to not spend money, you don't go pick up literally the highest paid player in the league outside of
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Wall makes like a hair more, and like some other players, like whatever. I have to look and see where he is on the list, but he's like right up there as most. You just don't do that. So it's not that they were running from money. It's not that money's the problem. It's that the player val is the problem. If you don't like
Yeah.
what they've done, which
How
clearly
far
this-
out when these teams and these front offices are planning and they're holding the two draft picks or this or that, usually in any business you're X amount of months or years ahead planning. How far ahead are most of these teams planning? Are they usually just a year or two? Are they looking
Well-
3 to 4 years? What is that?
Like, if you're a GM coming in and saying we're going to start winning in like 4 or 5 years, you're not going to be around in 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean? Now, every so often, someone will, like Presti might have that kind of, there are people who come in. Most of the time, though, like, you got to get to winning. You get hired in that job. Like the Kings folk, they've been hired. They're like near the end of their contracts, and they need to show results to stick around, like 3 years, 4 years.
Mhm.
So you only get so much time, and you come in with a plan. You say how you're going to execute it. The reality is everything is harder in life, just generally speaking. Just the nature of things.
When
It's
you
hard
actually
to
get
achieve.
down to it,
It's hard to, for every one of us on some level. There are some people who fail upwards nonstop and have success like that, right? Most of us have to struggle a bit, and you only have success in stretches, right? That's like an NBA team is only so good for so long. So I don't know how far off the Lakers have planned, but once you get LeBron, like
It's win
the
now.
plan is win now.
Yeah.
And the concern, if you're a Lakers fan, like LeBron only has one more year after this. Rob said at the press conference, I was there. He's like, we locked him in for multiple years. I'm like, did you though? Because like he added 2 years
And a
to the
player
one,
option.
but one's an option.
One's a plays
And
option
so
always.
you got him for this year.
Yeah.
Got him for one more after that. Now Bronny shows up and he gets drafted to Orlando. Then is LeBron going to go to Orlando? He might just.
Yeah.
Look, I have kids, and like I get it. Like there's no amount of money. Like Juwan Howard, right? He had an opportunity. Lakers tried to get him. He's got his second kid going. Was it Michigan? Right.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm. He didn't want to leave.
He didn't want to leave because this is a once in a life. He's made millions of dollars. There's no amount of money. Like LeBron's a billionaire. There's no
Yep.
amount of millions that could keep him away from being there for his son's rookie year.
Mhm.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Once in a lifetime thing. I'm sorry. Don't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay,
You're
here's
right.
the thing.
I mean,
wait.
is he going to do it?
Can
And we know he's going to do it.
I don't.
He's going to do it. He's not.
And how many teams know that? And okay, fine. Maybe the number one pick won't go to Bronny, but like if you're 15, 20,
Why
and
wouldn't
you're
you do it?
Minnesota,
Yeah, grab it.
and you have a chance to add to Gobert, Cat, Edwards, whoever else you got on that roster, right?
Mhm. An aging LeBron take.
And
him.
add LeBron.
Okay, so let me ask
Yeah.
you. Serious question.
You don't take Bronny to get that?
Serious question. I'm not hating at all.
Well, I mean,
but I ain't hating.
That's
Bronny has dropped down in
significant.
high school ranking from 20 to about 60. I don't think Bronny is, I'm not gonna say capable. He shouldn't be drafted. Let me just say, in my opinion, I don't think he should get drafted.
As of right now, at least.
Do you think that a team in an effort to get LeBron on their team would draft a player that they
I
don't?
just said a team, right?
I mean, that's what I think.
So
that's what
Orlando.
we're saying.
So Minnesota.
That's what. That's
So
what
so
we're
you said
saying.
Minnesota would
In my
draft him.
opinion-
Yes.
In my opinion, if Minnesota, so let's say Minnesota's good, okay? We don't know how good, but let's say they're between 20 and 28. But let's just give them 22. They're the 22 pick. That doesn't matter. Many fans, whatever.
Bronny's out there.
Okay, it's 22. In
You
that
give them the
draft.
first round?
First round, 22.
Yeah.
Okay. You're a team that is trying to win a championship right now with Cat, Gobert, and all those dudes, right? And now let's say they don't win this next year and they don't win the next year, right? So now we get to that year where it's time to draft. They're 22 pick. They've been to the playoffs. They've done well, got to conference finals, whatever. Couldn't get over that hump. You have a chance to add a 20. What are they going to do with a team like that with a 22nd pick? They're going to get a role player who's not going to play on a championship team. Maybe in a great draft, they get a good prospect. But the reality is like you draft any human being,
Takes time.
Okay, so help
it
me out.
doesn't matter. But you add one human being who gets you LeBron.
Right.
That's worth. It don't matter if he can't dribble a basketball. Don't
Yeah,
matter if he's
at that
5
point,
Okay, so
Bronny's skills.
so
You know
you-
what it
you-
is, Mike. You know what it is,
Okay,
money.
listen, I get
You
that.
know what it
Right?
is.
But I get that. But
LeBron
but
is a star. He brings people in the door.
Yeah, you know
it
what it
don't matter if
is.
he's 40, 45.
That's
and,
it.
and I rock with that. But isn't a first round? Isn't your contract guaranteed with? There's 2 years an option.
Yeah.
So
you get to have
so
LeBron
you're gonna-
for 2 years.
Right.
so you're gonna play. Well, you're gonna
You ain't
pay.
got to play. I'm going to put him on the bench.
Well, what is it like three? What's I mean, I know the contract is already it's
Okay,
$3 million.
so look at it this way.
A 22 round.
In 2 years,
Okay.
do you think someone would trade a first round pick, a single first round pick at 20 for LeBron James?
There you go. There you go.
They
That
would.
answers it.
Oh, and you know they would.
At least they
They
get two
would.
players.
You know
for that.
they would.
They would.
And so
So you know so what's
I feel
guaranteed
for-
at 20? Like $3
I-
million a year.
It's
Uh,
the money don't even matter.
that's what we're trying to. You trying to justify, financially, and I'm looking at if we are going to put it in financial terms. I'm looking at the marketability
Right.
of LeBron James.
Right.
So you're seeing it from a basketball standpoint and talk about salary. I'm like, F the salary. Let's talk about all the commercials that
And-
LeBron
and the national games they'll be
How
on.
many
and,
championships do the Timberwolves have in the NBA?
Thank you.
None.
How about the
and
state
how
of
many-
Minnesota?
How many times? How many championships LeBron got? You know what I'm saying? And then you have the marketability, right? And
So you would draft, okay?
Based upon.
You're-
So what we're saying is we're saying based
No, I get
upon
it.
that.
I understand.
We're not saying if you give me the numbers and you tell me that he dropped from 20 to 60.
I mean,
I'm
you talk about nepotism,
and I'm just
I mean,
Nah.
ain't this whole
It's not
thing
LeBron
nepotism?
doing it.
the NBA is run on nepotism and cronyism.
Yeah, ain't that the whole
Okay.
thing?
Like people who run teams have last names that match other people. People get jobs, and like,
Based on
look,
that.
it is what it is. Now,
Yeah, I understand from
Okay.
a coaching perspective. That's
And-
cool.
but
Yeah.
look,
From
it's who
player,
you know,
from
who
player
you're related to.
perspective?
Man, he's the son of
And,
LeBron James.
look, I'm not related to anybody in the NBA. It's not. I'm like 5'7". Like, it was never going to happen for me when it comes to being on the court. I have a lot of friends that I've made through the years, and that's helps. It's a part of the job.
Sure.
Is networking.
Networking.
So, but I can't control that aspect. And look, I pull Bronny's a kid. He's a high school kid. I don't know what, I don't know. I've never met him, and I wish him well in his life. I mean, he's growing up in a very fortunate, situation, being son of, someone who's a billionaire.
High
And
pressure.
LeBron,
though.
I have a lot of respect for Bron as a lot of what he's done as a man, as a human.
I do too.
Role model.
I love what LeBron has
and
done
I want, and it's
off the court.
it's tough for Bronny because he's going to be scrutinized. He's going to have to live up to that. All that.
Yeah.
I get all that. But when we start talking about the business of basketball, which is what my job is, then we start saying, yeah, it doesn't matter how good of a basketball player he is. It's like trading a first to get LeBron. That's where I see it going. That's just Minnesota. We haven't talked about 29, 28 other teams.
Right.
Now would the Cavs do it? Maybe, but they had kind of a falling out, and it's LeBron. Maybe they don't.
Yep.
Maybe they do. Miami, Pat Riley.
But
probably
Lakers
not.
don't do it, right? You don't
I mean,
think?
Lakers
we
don't
only have a
their
second round.
pick. Lakers don't even have the pick.
We don't have even pick.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, but I mean, okay.
Nah, it's not
It's
that
up
We're
to
not
David
going
Griffin.
to get a first round.
Look at it this way. David Griffin, right?
Mhm.
He has the right to get the 2024 or 2025 Laker first. He's got a team that's on the verge in their mind, right? They're right there. They got to the playoffs. They got Zion coming back, gotten CJ,
Yep.
right? They just gave Nance. They got Ingram. They got
Yeah.
this nice team, right? Let's say this next year they get a little further. Instead of being a play-in team in a first round, now they get a second round team. Now the next year after that, now they have a chance. Do we keep Lakers pick, or do we wait to 25, or maybe with 2024 we'll take that pick, we'll draft Bronny, and then we'll steal LeBron?
Right.
Okay, so now we got two teams.
It's all about options.
Okay, now we got two teams.
That's
All right,
crazy.
that's 2 out of 30, right? So you go down.
That's crazy.
Like, would Steve Ballmer do it? I don't know. He might do it.
Okay.
Yeah, he would do it.
Was-
I think Bama would do it. Oh my God, I think he would do it.
Okay, so now you steal LeBron James from the Lakers.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you go to your new building.
It's
in
a great
Inglewood?
story.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great story.
Yeah. So
You
like,
see it now.
I mean, the logistics and the showmanship
The
behind
marketing.
the marketing behind
they
it.
just came up with 3. Now, like I
Yeah.
said, I don't know if the Spurs do it. I don't know if the Heat do it.
But we
I don't
all
know if
agree
the
that
the
Bronny is
Cavs
not
are
good enough to play in the
iffy on.
league, though.
Would the
I'm
Knicks
saying
do it?
so. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the Knicks do it.
Well, they
Oh my
would try,
God.
but then they would mess it up somehow.
Well,
What-
that's reasonable.
Somehow
but,
they'd
like,
get Bronny and mess
I
up
mean,
the
there
LeBron
like,
part.
the Warriors might not do it. I don't know
Right.
where the Warriors are going to be at that point,
Right.
but
Right.
like we can find. I feel like it's harder to find teams that
Wouldn't
won't do it
Yeah.
than it
Than
is
that.
that would.
Yeah.
And that we're talking about
That's-
in the 20s. What if what were we talking about? If we're talking about the number 1 pick, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how high this goes.
Why are we doing that?
Right. So
All right. That's
For
the league.
LeBron.
like
For
yeah.
LeBron.
For LeBron.
Now, look, he'll
That's
be
what we're
40.
doing.
So, okay, let me ask you a serious question then. Is that considered tampering? Like, hey, LeBron, will you come over we'll draft your kid if you agree
Well, I
to opt
mean,
out?
As long
If
as
you
they
say
don't
it like
talk
that,
about
I'm
it.
just,
yes.
I'm just asking.
If you say it like that, yes.
Yeah, like that. You can't contact him while he's under contract. You can contact him in July. Now, what's legal and what happens are two different things.
Right. I
So,
get that.
Great
right.
question.
Like teams communicate outside the bounds of what's legal. Period.
And for the-
that's just the nature.
And for the record, players can talk to other players all the time, right?
The league doesn't crack down on that because it's basically impossible.
It's
So,
impossible to
yeah.
do.
Right. So, I mean, so you can literally,
Kyrie having the
you can literally off the record
little
have a conversation. Hey,
with
can you do me
KD
a
and
favor?
LeBron.
LeBron's
Call
made
up
it pretty
LeBron.
clear what his intentions are.
Yeah,
And-
LeBron's put it out there, so
Right.
the teams don't have to communicate with
so
him.
from the bring it back to the Lakers, like if you trade 2027 and 2029,
That's
and then
so
LeBron
far away.
leaves, LeBron leaves after 1 more year, and now you go into that kind of like, well, maybe they get people with cap room, or maybe they don't. AD probably opts out and leaves too. Now you're starting over. Maybe they rebuild quickly. Maybe they don't. Teams are very interested in that
in those picks.
2027 pick.
Yeah, it's valuable.
because I don't think teams have a lot of faith in the current leadership that the Lakers have, based on their track record, based on the kind of stuff I've written on 5 years of deals that are very iffy, and the Russ decision. Now you're not so confident that this team's just gonna. It's not like you got like Jerry West there, or like someone who.
There's nobody proven. There's nobody proven. You're looking and as each year passes past the bubble year, the asterisk that people want to put on that championship gets larger.
There are teams
and
who look
larger.
at that and say that. Obviously, Laker fans don't agree. Lakers don't agree, but some other teams look at that and say the reason they won is because LeBron got a ton of extra rest. AD was healthy because he finally got some rest. And yeah, LeBron is mentally tough. And when you have a leader like LeBron, this is a credit to him in a bubble situation where other players can't cope with that situation. LeBron's the guy you want to have you lead that through.
Yeah,
that.
he's
So
the general that can get you
respect
through
to
that.
LeBron. So is it as much as like the Lakers put a great team together? Like they were a bad shooting team that year. People say, like they were not a good shooting team. They were about as good the next year when they went out and started. They kept trying to get more and add shooters and stuff. They just got worse. So,
but to that point though, when it comes to the bubble championship, I keep hearing people like try to say that there's an asterisk to that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the Lakers before the whole thing went down at one point with 24-3? They lost the first game and they rattled off and they went 24-3.
That they I don't think the Spurs deserve an asterisk the year they won.
No,
Like I don't buy
all teams played
but
the
I
same.
do talk to other teams and people and agents and other people in other organizations and whatnot. And there's a perception that like the Lakers are not headed into a good place and that they won. It's like a broken clock is right twice a day. And that's kind of the logic of why they won from some people's point of view. And if those are the teams that are trying to negotiate with the Lakers to get that 2027, 2029, those picks are valuable to them because they don't have the confidence that the Lakers can fix this. And
because
LeBron
they get all the assets.
Right. And then by 2029, maybe they figure it out. But
by that time, you ain't got the picks.
But I mean, 2027, 29, those are, and Rob said it correctly. They can only trade these once. He said that at media day, and it's legit. They can only trade it once.
So do you do the what is it? The buddy and but see the thing is like, so the funny thing about that whole, and I know we got to go. I mean, because we're running up against it, but it's like we were flirting with the Kyrie thing so long that I think a more savvy front office would have pivoted way early before the price tag got way too high for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, because at the time Kyrie and they were asking for 2 first round picks, and supposedly what was coming out, the Pacers are only asking for 1.
That's not true.
I mean, that's what the papers are saying. I mean, obviously,
Pacers were always asking.
Okay, so first I heard that it was like, basically what I was reading, it was a 2. And then Pacers, then all of a sudden it seemed like they just upped it up.
The Pacers said from the start, from what I understand, that they had offers for Turner for 1, and they need to trade him. They would need 2. They can trade him somewhere else. They've also told teams that they're not interested in trading Turner. So their owner doesn't want to tank. I've talked to the Pacers for several years in different ways, and they can't be a tax team. Their owner won't pay the tax, and they won't tank. Last year, injuries just derailed their whole season. It was what it was. They're not planning on tanking this season. Now, this is what I'm writing on right now is like 20 games in where the Lakers were the Pacers. That's a different story.
And everything changes. Prices go up and
maybe
prices
Darvin
go down.
Is the key to unlocking Russ, and none being healthy, and this team is out 15-5. Maybe the Pacers are 3-17, and Miles Turner is demanding a trade. You know what I mean? Like the market can change just like that. Like Jay Crowder, he's on the market. We didn't know that he was in the market. Now he's on the market. Like you can anticipate he might be on the market because he's extension eligible and they may not extend him. And so if they don't extend him, does he throw a tantrum? And that's what happened. No offense to Jay Crowder. I get it. Like that's a messed up situation. What's going on in Phoenix?
I mean, see what they're doing with the 80.
Yeah. So it is what it is. So, these are the kind of things that have to be resolved, and we just need time to resolve it. But I don't know if there was ever an opportunity that the Lakers had to strike.
Okay.
But I also think they had to wait until LeBron extended before they could. Because you do any of these things and LeBron doesn't extend, and then he leaves after a year,
and you're locked.
Then it's like, well, what did we just do?
What did we do it for?
So there was pressure on both ends of the court. They would have made a
Absolutely.
deal for Kyrie in June or July without LeBron having that locked in, because they would be confident that would work. And in worst case scenario, at least you have Kyrie and AD if LeBron leaves.
Right.
But they were pretty confident from what I understand. But ultimately the Nets, once KD asked out, they were like, they stopped. There was no negotiation at that point. They weren't trying to trade Kyrie. They shut off communication. It was just like, we got to figure out what's up with KD. They explored KD things. Nothing looked good. And they just said, all right, hell, we're not doing this. But it was never like, oh, let's trade KD at that point. That point, or Kyrie at that point. It was like, let's just wait on that. So the Lakers never had that window unless it was in June before KD's trade.
Right. Even came up.
Had they offered 2 picks
Might
in
have got them.
June, I bet they could have gotten something done.
Would have got done. Guys, we can continue this all night. I actually have a ton of questions, but we are running out of time. And we always finish our show with a segment we call Money Mike's Out of Bounds. It's pretty simple, Eric. Money Mike's going to go ahead and share his opinions or thoughts on a topic, and he wants to know if his thoughts are in bounds or out of bounds. Money Mike, you've got the mic.
All right. So I want to go over like the Lakers press conference that we had and our guy Westbrook. We go ahead and have a producer play it for me.
I love again. Yeah, Russ, you said you're buying into the Lakers. Do you think the Lakers are buying into you? Do you think the Lakers want you here?
I mean, whether that they want me here or not, it doesn't really matter. Honestly, my job is to be a professional, show up to work like I've always done thus far, do my job the best way I know how to, and that's it. I mean, we all have jobs that sometimes people at our jobs don't like us or don't want us there, as you guys probably can attest to, in any other job across the world. And as a professional and as a working man, I have to do my job and do it the best way I know how to be able to support and take care of my family, and that's what I would do.
Okay, so look, this is the most ridiculous answer that I've ever seen anybody give, right? First of all, you're making $47 million, right? And every Russell Westbrook I have seen, the reason why Kobe loved this guy was because he knew he could take over the league, command the game. He showed all this confidence. You telling me that, all right, I'm just going to come and just do my job. All that means is you're going to show up in uniform and dribble the ball and maybe make a layup. Am I out of bounds for saying that this guy should have answered that question with way more confidence? He should have said something like, yeah, they were trying to trade me, but they couldn't, and I'm going to show them why they shouldn't have. And I'm going to go in, I'm going to tear it up. Am I out of bounds for saying that what he gave me is the worst answer ever in history?
We'll start with you, Eric.
Oof.
I know you in the media, you don't have to answer, but I'm just saying.
No.
Come on, man. Like, I'm just going to do my job. Your job is to come play dressed up in the uniform and dribble the ball. I need you to tear up the league. I need that confidence. I need all that.
I mean, I don't think you're out of bounds, but I also think this is a nuanced, complicated issue. And I think he honestly answered the question fairly. Like, he's showing up. He knows, dating back to February or before February, that LeBron wanted him out. They wanted to trade him. They tried to trade him. They tried to trade him in June. They tried to trade him in July, tried to trade him in August. And now here we are, and he hasn't been traded. And so he's a all heart kind of guy.
Yep, very proud.
Right.
How do you have that heart with these people who want him gone?
You know why? Because you got Patrick Beverly got your back now. You know what I'm saying?
Step Pat.
I think you're in bounds. Only reason why I'm saying that is because it just feels like he's a defeated player right now. He just feels like there's no confidence in him. And I think when he came back home, right? He came back home to LA. This is his home. And I don't know, but the Laker fans are toxic right now. Like, we're really, really toxic. And if you're messing up, they're going to get on you, and they're going to get really, really on you. And I don't think he would expecting that. Being from LA, he should have known kind of like how the Laker fans are. I mean, especially if you're looking at the whole Danny Green situation about 2 years ago, man, that should have let you know exactly how they were, because they were trying to ship him out. He missed any kind of threes at the buzzer. They were trying to get him out of either. Even though Danny Green was a pretty good player for the Lakers, they still wanted to get him out if he did anything that was not contributing to any wins. Like, he could play the best defense in the world, but it didn't matter.
Perfect.
You missed the shot at the end of the buzzer. Oh, you gotta go. You gotta go. So they were doing the same thing with Westbrook, and I think he was kind of like taken aback by it a little bit. And he didn't. I mean, front office, LeBron, one thing. The fans, Like I'm not even welcome at my own home.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, why am I, I kind of like, why am I here and stuff. So yeah, could he answered it a little bit differently? Yes. But I think he just waiting on the call. Like he's just waiting on the call at this point.
I'm going inbounds, Money Mike, and the reason why I'm going inbounds is I'm going to take Shaq's point of view and say that it was apparent that Westbrook was a little bit passive last season, and he didn't come in and play his game. He came in and tried to meld with the team, and he should have just came in and played his game, and that's really the only thing that will work for him. After last season, it was completely unfair. He was actually one of the more consistent players for the Lakers, to be honest with you, but his stock is at an all-time low. So he really does have to come out and play with some fire and show that spirit, that Mamba mentality, as we all call it. So it would have been nice to see that in this press conference. So for that reason, I give it to you. But as a man and a human, I completely understand it.
I understand.
He was
100%.
thrown
Yeah,
under
but
the
you can't
bus.
show that.
He was thrown under the
You can't
bus,
show that.
and it's really hard to.
That
stand
question
up.
was kind of wild though. When he kept
it's
going with the
loaded.
question, he was
It's
like,
loaded.
he's like,
It's a loaded
That
question.
was I worked with Bill with the LA Times.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
great at what he does, and
Yeah.
that's an important question.
It is.
It was a
It
fair
is.
question.
I think it's a very valid question. I just think that his answer, even if he felt that way, he shouldn't have given that. First of all, listen, Patrick Beverly, in my eyes, and I see him, he's not a great basketball player. But you talk to him, he think he's LeBron. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I love
Ultimate
his
confidence.
confidence.
He's definitely first ballot. Hall of
You know
Famer.
what I mean? Like when they asked Patrick Beverly, "What's your favorite highlight of LeBron?" His answer was, "When I blocked LeBron." That was his answer, and I love
they're
that.
playing with me.
Yeah, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it's a different dynamic. Like we already, when he said they're playing with me, we're like, that dude is a clown.
Yeah, that
but
is crazy. But you
love the
appreciate it.
confidence, and what worries me with that answer is it's like he doesn't have that confidence,
Well,
and that's what he has to play with.
Pat
this
and
year.
Russ are both ride or die kind of guys.
Right.
Mhm.
But once you give
That's
up
it.
on them,
They're
it's like they're out. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You don't want me. I don't want nothing to do
Yeah,
with you.
but okay, so that's what makes you wonder because Darvin Ham has been saying
He's been trying to rope him
and
back
he was
in.
like he said that
You have a coach in one ear doing what you're saying.
Yep.
You also have a front office making calls trying to trade you.
right
And
right.
saying,
and knowing that the coach only has limited power.
yeah, Darvin don't have any power in this regard. He's not in charge of this.
but even from the front office perspective, they're not willing to give up that much for him though.
Yeah.
Because they
So-
think
so there is-
they can give up less later is what
Yeah.
they think. They could be
Yeah.
right, they could be wrong.
Oh, don't
Yeah,
say
they
that.
need to get better.
Don't
Guys,
let Westbrook
this
hear
has been
that.
outstanding. Eric, can you please let our followers know the best way to keep up to date with what you've got going on?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter. It's probably the best place at Eric Pincus, EricPincus. I write for Bleacher Report. I also work for Sports Business Classroom, which is a great learning educational platform.
Yep.
We have our annual immersive in Vegas around Summer League, which is like the best program in the world to get yourself into the business of basketball. But in the meantime, just reach out to
Amazing.
me, hit me on Twitter, say hi. I'm all over the place, but that's really the best way.
That is excellent.
Awesome.
Guys, this has been wonderful. For Stat Pat, Money Mike, our host, our guest here, Eric Pincus. I'm your host, Simsta. We appreciate it. This has been the Profanity Nation podcast exclusively on Infinity Studio streaming channel. We'll be back next week, as always, Sundays at 8:30 p.m. Be sure to subscribe, follow, do all the above, and keep up to date with what we've got going on. All right. Have a good one. We'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Shout
Peace.
out.